Bransfield.
It's been 5 years since I did a video for the PlayStation's 25th birthday, so I'd say it's about time to do a video for the PlayStation's 30th birthday, even though it meant playing every single one of these games to capture the footage. Oh well. So here we go again, another birthday list with another bunch of games I consider overlooked or underrated, or sometimes both. They're not all bangers, they're not all ones that have aged well, they're not all exclusives, and they're not all ones you haven't heard of, but they are here in my list, so that's that, isn't it? As before, I've steered clear of RPGs, not because I don't like them, hey, I do, but because there isn't enough time in the world to play through them all to see if they're worth including in a video like this or not. To the listing!
They have ignored our hails and they are powering weapons. All pilots...
Looks good. Sounds good. Has Worf. What more do you need from a Star Trek game? Picard? It's got that too. Oh, and it was made by a bunch of the people behind perennial Bransfield favourite series Colony Wars. So all of that surely makes Star Trek Invasion the perfect game, yes? Yes, if yes means no, that is. Don't get me wrong, this reskin Colony Wars, probably more a reskin Blast Radius, is great fun and provides huge chunks of satisfaction across its dozens of missions. Not just because of Michael Dorn's sultry tones, but also definitely because of that. It's a really good, well-made, fun title that feels, to me, like it was ignored in the most part simply because it was a licensed title in the heyday of licensed games being dog poop. It gets samey after not too long, with missions dragging on way beyond the point where it's not funny anymore to see yet another wave of reinforcements pinging into view. There's not much variety in what you're doing. It's actually surprisingly un-Star Trek-y in the most part. It has its failings, is what I'm getting at. But none of that stops it from being a solid recommendation as a PlayStation original you might have missed first time around that's well worth a go. Engage!
Mission terminated.
Well, yeah, Speed Freaks, Speed Punks in the States, is a kart racer, so it's quite obvious why it largely fell by the wayside from a historical perspective. If you're not Mario Kart, Crash Team Racing, or maybe those Nickelodeon ones, who really cares? It's fair. The 90s had a lot of trash jammed into go-karts and pushed out to capitalize on one of the big popular trends of the time. Except Speed Freaks is pretty good. You can never quite shake the feeling of cynicism around it. It's Mario Kart but edgy sort of thing. But when you're playing something that handles well, features interesting tracks, that has some great multiplayer fun to be had, why does any of that matter? Better than Crash Team Racing? No, I wouldn't go that far. But Speed Freaks is the sort of game it's easy to overlook and ignore. I'd say it deserves better than that. Were you to tell me a bowling game based on Animaniacs would be a surprisingly deep simulation-ish of the world of 10-pin ball blasting, I'd have believed you because I tend to listen to people when they tell me things. I'd still be surprised though. Because yes, despite 10-Pin Alley being licensed trash set around one of the finest cartoons humanity has ever created, it's more than just a slapdash bundle of shallow mechanics and half-hearted recreations of the sport of kings and queens. Sure, this isn't a super serious and physics-perfect simulation, but you're looking at multiple different factors every time you hurl a ball down the lane: aim, positioning, spin, power, and control. With some characters, you're even manually controlling how they approach their run-up. It's surprising. And because of that, because it's clear to see this is a bowling game very obviously made by fans of bowling, Animaniacs 10-Pin Alley is really good fun. Surprising fun. Fingerprints. I've no Japanese in me, so it took a second to get rolling, but Gunpei is... it's great. A puzzle game in the ilk of the classics, Tetris, Puyo Puyo, Mean Bean Machine, Gem X on the Amiga, all that lot. You're tasked with something simple, but something that gets ever more complex and puts you up against it as time goes by. You need to complete a fuse from one side of the screen to the other by manipulating little bits of fuse that make up the constituent parts of said main fuse. Oh, it's like Pipe Mania, but without the ability to rotate things, which makes sense as that would make the puzzle levels much easier. I don't know what to add really. I was playing as a cowboy frog, maybe there are other characters? Gunpei is really satisfying and something I find easy to recommend to anyone looking for a bit of hectic puzzling action in their life. And who isn't looking for hectic puzzling action in their life? I wouldn't go so far as to say Jamalami is particularly unknown in PlayStationing circles, but there's certainly the argument that the titular Lamb's guitar-based spin-off resides firmly in the shadow of its far more popular precursor, Parappa the Rapper. If you've not played Jamalami, well, first up I'd recommend making sure you can play it in a way where input lag isn't utterly detrimental to the experience, as tends to be the case with older rhythm action games these days, but second, I'd say go play it. It's fantastic. It's just as silly and fun and creative and stylish as Parappa's first outing. The mix of musical styles is more pronounced than we saw with the tenacious Rap Dog. It maintains a sometimes maddening level of challenge, and Lamy herself is utterly charming in that she's riddled with anxiety and a bit crap at life, and so is thoroughly relatable. Parappa is my go-to, sure, but Lamy is an exceptionally close second place, and she deserves more recognition. I was racking my brain to try and figure out what it was with Sledstorm that so immediately grabbed my attention. The snow, the yet another game with Rob Zombie's Dragula on the soundtrack, the snowmobiles reminded me of the fact my wife ran a snowmobile taxi service in the middle of Antarctica yet still somehow thinks I'm interesting. Turned out it was none of those. After engaging in deep research, Wikipedia, my brain piped up with an "oh" as I noticed mention of Sledstorm riffing on EA's earlier racing series, Road Rash. That explains it. Helpfully, Sledstorm is good in its own right too. Your motor ski physics are satisfyingly meaty, tracks are brilliant with plenty of alternate routes and hidden shortcuts throughout, and the progress through championship mode, improving your unbranded skidoo as you go, imbues it with a real sense of, progress. I actually feel like a buffoon for having ignored this one for so long. Don't make the mistake I did. Were this a couple of years ago, this one could be a bit more unknown, but Llamasoft the Jeff Minter story did include Tempest 2000, and Tempest X3 is a remake/port of that Atari Jaguar original, so make of that what you will. Doesn't stop X3 from being a good fun game that tends to be overlooked in the grand scheme of all things PlayStation-y though. Tempest X3 is a game of style, speed, skill, and evasiveness. Making your way through a bunch of differently shaped levels, you must blast the baddies, not get blasted yourself, pick up bonuses, and not get grabbed either. Simple concept carried out with devilishly challenging bastardry that will put most players on the back foot. That is a stealth admission. I'm just no good at the game, of course, and things become mind-warping in little to no time at all. Ah, Jeff, you wild, llama-loving bugger. It was re-released on PlayStation Network, so there are clearly fans of Cooler World dotted around the place, but it's safe to say this puzzle game focused on navigation and manipulation of 3D spaces, where you play as a beach ball, isn't the first thought most people have when thinking about Sony's first console. It should be up there though, because Cooler World, Okay, fine, it's called Roll Away in the US, but Cooler World is home to a magnificent mix of style and substance, all coming together to form such a coherent and rapturing whole. This is a game that does look its age and does inhabit that specific style of European-made console games in the 90s, but one that simultaneously still looks absolutely fantastic and, at least in my eyes, should be considered a true classic, an absolute all-timer in the puzzle genre. Cooler World is a pure vision, carried off to near perfection and begs to be discovered or rediscovered by ball lovers the world over. It's not great, and it's probably better on N64, and it's definitely better on PC, but that's not the point of this list, is it? Forsaken on PS1 might be the clunkiest of the versions, with some early days console FPS controls to grapple with before you can really have any fun with it, but it's ambitious. There's fun in there. It's got that great 1990s sci-fi cyberpunkish bollocks about it that I love so much. And isn't that what really matters? Aping the likes of Descent and, well, Descent mainly, Forsaken sets you loose across fully navigable 3D levels, letting you scoot aggressively from pillar to post, trying and often failing to nail the endless waves of diddy little robot enemies coming your way, from every bloody angle, with those aforementioned clunky controls. It's got a definite vibe, and honestly is a game where if I could get my head around the controls a bit better, I would be happy to go back and play through properly. And maybe that's the point. An action puzzle dice game might sound impossible to understand, but it's precisely what Devil Dice is. While nowhere near as weird as No One Can Stop Mr. Domino, Devil Dice does manage to successfully straddle that gap between being a unique, very of its time title, while also being good. Look, it is good. I know it's good. I can tell it's good. But when you're as tired as I am all the time, it can be hard to get your brain around things like manipulating dice as some kind of baby devil creature thing, but not in a scary way. You hear Devil Dice mentioned, but how many of us have actually bothered to play it? Exactly. Get on it. Especially if you're less frazzled than I am. You'll have a lot of fun. Breaking news! I just played the Devil Dice bit in Astro Bot. I feel seen.
3, 2, 1, clear!
By all rights, Buster Groove should be a giant turd pressed firmly onto a CD-ROM and doled out to unsuspecting rubes who would take it home and smear it all over their PlayStation home entertainment console. For one, it's called Buster Groove. For two, it's a dance game made by a studio you haven't heard of whose most well-known release was probably Britney's Dance Beat on PS2. Shock of all shocks, what with me talking about it right now though, Buster Groove is actually fantastic fun. It's rhythm action more than an actual dance game, following the footsteps of Parappa the Rapper in the heady days of the mid to late 90s where, well, rhythm action was popular. Simple case of dance off, every fourth beat you need to hit a button combo, and there are some specials you can hit along the way. Whoever has the camera panned more their way at the end of the genuinely excellent selection of songs wins. Buster Groove is compelling, it's satisfying to build up a big combo of dance moves, it's that solid mix of simple yet complex. It's tongue-in-cheek enough that its attempts at being cool actually tend to land, and it massively outperforms any expectations I had for a game with such a stupid name.
You win!
I can't help but feel the Street Fighter X series is something of a punchline these days. The largely forgotten, ultimately failed attempt to spin off into the world of 3D brawling lasting just a few years before Capcom took it behind the woodshed and violently murdered it. And I can't help but feel that it's just undeserved. And it's Street Fighter X2 Plus that pushed me down this particular winding road of thought. I mean, Both X Plus Alpha and X2 Plus did pretty well on PlayStation, reviewing decently and selling more than a few copies apiece, so it's not like this is a huge unknown in the gaming world. But it doesn't get the kudos it deserves for being a tight, well-designed brawler that mixed in enough of its own ideas while simultaneously maintaining strong links to the franchise it was based on. There are better fighting games, there are better Street Fighter games, but this one should still be getting more attention than it seems to. All that said, I don't think the series needs to return. Capcom's mainline batter 'em up series adopted the 3D 2D thing years ago, and there's little I can think of that the X spin-off named X could do to positively impact Street Fighter as a whole. What it could positively impact, though, is some of your spare time if you went and played X2 Plus for a bit. Because it's good. What the hell is this in my video games? A light-hearted, creative, dare I say, unique tale of dogs and cats living together on floating islands in which you play as a dog cop who rides around in a robotic suit of justice? Well, yes, obviously. Tail Concerto is clunky in that forgivable early-ish 3D way, but it's easy to get past hurdles like that on picking up a controller and feeling just how snappy and surprisingly tight it all feels. You've got some looseness, sure, and a camera that sometimes does actively work against you, but it was the 90s, what do you expect? And the core experience more than makes up for these minor downfalls, because, as I may have mentioned, you play a dog cop in a robo-suit. It's harmless, it's short, it's simple, it's the perfect retro game to pick up and whiz through when you're 900 years old and have no time for anything anymore. And best of all, Tail Concerto led directly into developer CyberConnect's second game and space taker-upper of many a Bransfield list, Silent Bomber. Anything that makes me think about Silent Bomber is a winner in my book. Sony was saying no when it came to PC to PS1 ports in North America, likely because the console was seeing many a compromised port come its way. So Descent Maximum was made in Descent 2's place for the PS1, a collection of missions designed specifically for the PlayStation, meaning they're much smaller, more cramped, and don't tax the poor little grey box's CPU too much. It would be a bit of a slap in the face to redo everything like this in such a cut-back fashion and still call the game Descent 2 though, so instead we got the Maximum moniker to differentiate. Wait, no, it was called Descent 2 in the UK. Well, anyway, it's easy to forget how fun the Descent series was, and while Maximum 2 isn't exactly the full-fat experience, there is a good time to be had with this pivotal 90s 3D shooters series. Is this the worst racing game on the list? Probably. Is it even a good game? I'm honestly not sure. Is it an idea I do still like and thought, ooh yeah, I'll include this in the video? Well, yes, obviously. All thoughts I had while playing the first race on Tycho RC. Then I got into the later levels and realised it's actually half decent. Still not brilliant, still Mario Kart Lite, but a consistent radio-controlled car theme mixed with sometimes creative track design, a bunch of weapons, a sprinkling of items, and a smattering of traps along every race. It makes for a game that is genuinely much better than it has any right to be. But still not a good game specifically. More a big surprise that something called Tycho RC Assault with a Battery could be anything other than utter toilet. We stuck with Sheepdog and Wolf here in Europe, but over in the States this one released as Looney Tunes Sheep Raider. Still, Sheepdog and Wolf played the same regardless of what title it had slapped on its front end, a Looney Tunes cartoon that you controlled, basically. Taking possession of Ralph Wolf's soul, no it's not Wile E. Coyote, you're tasked with stealing sheep from the ever-watchful Sam Sheepdog. What that amounts to is stealth and sneakery, using plenty of Acme gadgets to lure, distract and disable, and some general puzzle solving in your quest to liberate the woolly buffoons from their vigilant and violent protector. It's absolutely fabulous, frankly. It looks the part, it sounds fantastic, the setup is perfect, and the creativity as you progress never really falters. Yeah, sure, so the stealth, the game's main mechanic, isn't all that great, meaning this one tumbles sharply off its pedestal of greatness. But bear that in mind, expect plenty of frustration and just take it in your stride, and you're in for a treat with your sheep raiding escapades. Imagine Metal Slug, but made by a European development team with a budget of about 13 quid, originally for Game Boy Advance, but for some reason ported to PS1, and not all that great. You've got yourself some CT Special Forces going on there. I'm not particularly down on it though, because this is a dumb little arcadey shooter I can be happy to just play for a little bit before it gets a bit too annoying in its clunkiness and I go off to do something else with my day. That something else could be a million and one other things, but could also be playing CT Special Forces Back to Hell, the improved sequel. Or maybe it could be playing CT Special Forces Bioterror, the third game in the series. But it wouldn't be playing CT Special Forces Fire for Effect because I couldn't be bothered hooking up the PS2 to play that one. Yep, 4 games in this series, good crikey. Wu-Tang Taste the Pain, or Shaolin style in the US, is a peculiar one. Up to 4 characters beat one another to death, mystical kung fu movie stereotypes throwing hands and decimating torsos on one side, members of legendary hip-hop collective Wu-Tang Clan on the other side, also throwing hands and obliterating skulls. What an odd premise. But it works, and it's good fun, and it's a proper hoot when played in multiplayer. It is indeed worth getting in on, so maybe do that. The biggest point of note for Taste the Pain, though, is how it spun out from the cancelled Thrill Kill, a game not banned for being too violent and weird as I might once have believed, but simply shelved by its incoming publisher as something it didn't want to put out there for sale. Because it was too violent and weird, basically. Anyway, that extended ramble leads to this point. Thrill Kill is better than Wu-Tang. But obviously there's no way in the world you could possibly get hold of a cancelled game, just as I definitely couldn't do that back in the 90s and play Thrill Kill compulsively in 4-player with a bunch of mates. No siree, not me, not us, nope. I would love to see this pitched at a modern-day mega-big game publisher. Here's the idea, folks. You're some kind of scientist, some bad stuff happens, and your brain gets transferred into a cybernetic spider, and the game's a 2.5D platformer where you can get flamethrower and boomerang legs and have to fight other spiders and wasps and stuff. It'd be approved before the sentence even finished with a budget of 200 million quid, I am sure. But yeah, that's what Spider is. You're a man spider. You make your way through platforming levels with a bit of clumsy combat along the way as your cybernetic spider body prison gets modified and upgraded. At least until you die and lose everything, which you will a lot because this game, it's safe to say, is massively unfair. All the same, it's a unique setting, even if the actual mechanics aren't anything truly different, and it's worth a play if only to see what sorts of bewildering nonsense was able to be made, published, and released on actual physical discs in real touchable boxes back in the 90s. What a weird little game! Project Overkill is a curious mix of the Crusader series, the Loaded games, and plenty of other run-and-gun blast-em-ups absolutely riddled with claret like so many were in the edgy and cool 1990s. I wouldn't go to bat for it as an all-timer. It's understandably a forgotten piece of Konami's history, just as it's forgotten that Konami actually used to make games at all. But I would go so far as to put Project Overkill in a list of forgotten or overlooked PlayStation games that are worth a glance. So I've done that here. It's violent, responsive, and has a real character that helps it to embed in your brain. Sure, it's not quite the twin-stick shooter you'd want it to be in this day and age, and it's quite clearly very limited in what it offers you as a player. Go through a map, shoot all the people, pick up the thing. But I really like it. The 13-year-old me still living inside my brain would have adored this one back in 1996. But he's an idiot, so take the recommendation with a pinch of salt or 3.
Activate your overhead maps and follow the navigational...
Another example of a PC original coming to PlayStation and just feeling a bit off. Poor little PS1 with its 3Hz processor or whatever it was. Uprising X, like Descent Maximum, saw the initial release mussed up and reworked to fit the PlayStation brief that bit better. So, worse graphics, a choppier frame rate, draw distance measured in millimeters, that sort of bollocks. While clearly not suited to the console and frankly way too hard at times, Uprising X is a solid and rewarding jaunt through mid to late 90s 3D shooter vibes. First-person shooting, elements of real-time strategy, hints of a proto-open world to explore. It's a time capsule, an unspectacular jaunt through a very particular type of game from a very particular point in history. Plus, Uprising X is something I do like, and it's something that adds value and depth to the PlayStation's library. Every time you hear the Chan Man's PS1 game talked about these days, it always seems to be with the breathless enthusiasm usually saved for genuine, unassailable genre classics. Jackie Chan Stuntmaster is not there. It's not that good. But in real terms, accepting criticisms as they come, the game is fun. A fun combo system, fun platforming, times when it's fun to be chased by a truck just like in Uncharted. I won't put it on a pedestal, but I will join the voices in calling Jackie Chan Stuntmaster out as an overlooked, rough around the edges, almost gem that's still worth a look right here and now, whenever it is you're watching this video. Unless the world's ended, in which case you likely have bigger worries. Sorry about that. Reboot was one of those things I was always aware of, but at the same time was something I never liked the look of and so never gave the time of day. 90s CG, even in the 90s, made me feel sad humanity had ever bothered to progress, so why the hell would I ever play a game based on Reboot? Well, I missed out. Reboot is ambitious and enjoyable, and a real slap around the face for those of us expecting nothing more than low-effort, low-quality dreck. It does control poorly, and that can cause serious irritation, plus it's samey and boring with little variety as things progress, but it has enough charm about it to carry it through a few tens of minutes, a handful of hours of fun. Imagine if I was one of you weird people who actually liked Reboot back in the day, having a game based on the show that actually attempted to do something good with the source material. Well, that's better than an angry flick on the nipple.
Level complete.
Nanotech Warrior is a simple concept carried off well. It's a tube shooter. You're a teeny ship hurtling forwards, avoiding obstacles, dodging incoming fire, and blowing away enemies in your path, or avoiding them too. Or, like me, crashing into them repeatedly. I really do think there's a lot of enjoyment to be milked out of this game, at least so long as you have things like decent reactions and a drive to continue to try rather than get annoyed and turn it off. It's not really my sort of thing. I find it too frustrating in that delightfully 90s difficulty way it has about it. But there's no doubt in my brain pan that Nanotech Warrior is the sort of game that certain types of folk could get absolutely obsessed with, even if it does seem clear to me why this one has been largely ignored over the years. How's that for some fence sitting? Space Debris is basically Starwing, Star Fox if you must, with mostly on-rails navigation and identikit patterns of enemies billowing across the screen each time you play through a level. There's some freedom with alternative routes opening up periodically, but they really don't change much beyond allowing you to grab a different power-up, say. Why I have to lead with the negatives I don't know, but hey, as long as you bear all that in mind, what you find in Space Debris is a tidy and responsive sci-fi shooter. It looks really nice considering the hardware it's on. There's a genuine appeal in the game's setting and atmosphere. There is a nice mix of on-rails and small arena-style levels. You see a sense of progression with power-ups as you go, and it's wonderfully cheesy. Complaints back at release pegged Space Debris at around half an hour to play through. I didn't finish it, so don't know how accurate that is, but if it is, well, we've got ourselves a game here I can recommend you play to completion. It'll never win any awards, but it's starring on PlayStation for Fox's sake. Initially, I loaded up the US version of TOCA World Touring Cars, renamed Jarrett and Labonte Stock Car Racing, as it was the version I had to hand. 30 seconds into a race with some contemporary pop-punk adjacent brain rot fizzing out of my headphones, I switched things out for the original UK release and its blissful musical silence. Race sounds only, please. So, I never got TOCA, whatever, the touring car simulation titles from Codemasters that popped up on PlayStation at the tail end of the 90s. They were straight-laced, demanding on your skills, and not quite the arcadey race-em-up I wanted to engage with. TOCA World Touring Cars, the third in the series, did away with a lot of the bland bollockry from the previous two titles and offered a much more accessible racing game that mixed the series' wonderful presentation and real-world track and car accuracy with a handling model that didn't make me want to claw my own eyes out. Yes, I'm sure it alienated a lot of fans of the series, and if I was a TOCA diehard, I'd probably be up in arms about the third game, but I'm not. So I'm not. World Touring Cars helped TOCA take a place alongside the Gran Turismos and Colin McRae rallies of my personal driving game collection, and it still has a lot to offer to this day, as long as you're not playing that stupid US version. The PlayStation didn't need its own version of Power Stone, the arcade and Dreamcast Arena Combat classic, but with the Unholy War, well, no, it still didn't have its own version of Power Stone, or Smash Brothers. But it's fair to throw those names in there as a quick and dirty comparison to help see where this Toys for Bob under the Crystal Dynamics brand curio fits in the pantheon. While it generally feels like everything needed another pass on balancing and longevity of fights, as well as some truly heinous AI tactics, I have a good deal of fondness for the Unholy War. It's a good idea, and when it works, when you're not having to chase the idiot computer around for 5 minutes because they're bloody cowards, you get a great idea of what it was the devs were trying to hit here, especially when played in the game's turn-based strategy mode. The Unholy War is great in short bursts, and surely would have been an absolute unknown in the world of PlayStationing were it not for the fact the game came with a demo for the then upcoming Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Ah, such a cunning tactic. It was always sad that the PlayStation didn't have a game that could truly rival Sega's classic arcade and Saturn racer Daytona USA. Hark, what's that? The sound of a contender to the Daytona throne? Yes, it's Explosive Racer, the game that's just like Daytona, except it's both on PS1 and isn't anywhere near as good. There's stuff to be fond of here, mind you. A varied selection of racers, link-up play I obviously couldn't test. Sometimes it gets dark and you have to put your headlights on. The weather changes during a race. I'm sure Explosive Racing will tickle someone's nickel. That's why I thought it's suited for this list here, even if it's not one I can be bothered with. But one thing I'm not sure how to discuss. There is an attempt to have a banger of a tune in Explosive Racing, akin to Daytona's classic theme. But all I picked up on from that was someone singing, "Just reach around the corner," so yeah. It's like Daytona, but worse.
Human saved.
What is there to say? Steel Harbinger is indeed the most 90s game ever made, at least this side of Revolution X. It's sprite-based in a 3D world, there's a push to make that world big and explorable that falls short with it all being a bit empty, there's next to no logic to anything about the whole thing, it's daft in its violence and our heroine's costume among many other things, and it's riddled with some utterly superb FMV sequences. Can I say Steel Harbinger is good? Sometimes, yes. Can I say the developers were likely having fun in putting this one together? I would go with an absolute yes, yes. It shines through in how utterly wanton everything is about the game. It stumbles and stutters along, it often makes no sense, and you're never going to play it for more than a brief period to smile and laugh along with the experience it slapdashedly lobs your way. But this is a game where you can have fun. Sometimes it's refreshing to just play something where you're a cybernetically enhanced woman in a thong battling alien invaders, rescuing humans, and shooting dogs.
It's important to stay calm. I want to repeat that these sightings are unconfirmed. Jane?
Oh my. No!
A random recommendation in a comment on the PlayStation's 25th anniversary video I did led me to this one. I had no idea what to expect at all. It's Monopoly crossed with any number of Kairosoft games. You open shops, manage stocks, perform hostile takeovers, and all manner of other board gamey, capitalism-y stuff. I legitimately played it for about 3 hours, thus frittering away most of the day off I had and losing out on the ability to do anything at all useful with my time, and I don't regret it at all. Board Game Top Shop is brilliant. Yes, it takes forever for a game to finish, and it took me well over an hour to lose my first game, but I don't mind. It's near enough idle play, and it's got just enough going on to keep things feeling a bit fresher and lob in the odd unexpected twist or turn along the way. Genuinely, I'm going to be playing this on and off in future. Whew, there's your list. I'm not doing another one in 20 years for the 50th anniversary, that'd be too much, unless I start working on it now. Thanks for watching, and ultra thanks as always to my patrons on Patreon. You can join them through the link below, or hook up with the YouTube membership thing if you'd like. I'm off to scream at a wall for 29 minutes over the fact I decided both to do a video with 30 games in it and that I would record all the footage to be used in the video itself, thus necessitating hours of capture. Buffoonery. Bye!